Retro vibes for the modern mind. Welcome to NeoNostalgia with Craig and Ray. Your hosts talk pop culture from the 40s to the 90s. Tune in, have fun, and heck, you might even learn something. Well, let's not get crazy. Take it away, Craig and Ray.
Welcome to NeoNostalgia Podcast. I'm Craig Donofrio. I'm very excited about this podcast, brand new podcast that we're rolling out. I am one groovy guy, as you can see. Who are you, sir?
I'm Ray Keating, not so groovy, not as groovy as you, but I'm looking forward to this as well.
Yes. We're both pretty groovy guys, but you're more swell than groovy, I think.
Yeah, would we like
guys.
to bring that word swell back? I think so. I mean, it wasn't worked into that new recent Superman movie. He did things like, gosh, golly type of things, but no swell.
Oh, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
I guess we could say also that I am in Minnesota, so I'm Northern Command of NeoNostalgia, and you are in Florida, Southern Command.
Southern Command. And let's mention you are originally a West Coast guy.
Yes, I'm a Southern California boy.
And I'm an East Coast guy, not only just Florida, but spent most of my life in New York. So we've got the East and West Coast thing going on as well.
Yeah, you can see the difference with my svelte surfer body and my deep, dark tropical tan that, I'm a coastal West Coast kind of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you get in Minnesota, right? Yeah.
It's like 85 below zero right now. Anyway.
Now, don't give away when we're recording this, but it's always 85 below zero.
It's Minnesota.
Yeah,
hey, we've got 2 weeks of beautiful weather every year.
Fair enough. Hey, listen, I have to confess, I'm a Vikings fan, so yeah, I just don't live there. I prefer warm weather. So
someday we'll get a psychologist to come on with us and talk about why you are a Vikings fan, because you've never lived in Minnesota, so I'm not sure that I get it. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that would be a long episode. We don't need to deal with that now.
Young Ray and the trauma. Ray, what are we all about? Why are we doing this show?
We love nostalgia stuff. Particularly, we're going to look at the 1940s to the 1990s, and we are going to look at pop culture, television, movies, radio, novels, music, advertising. We're going to look at food and home lifestyle stuff. So we're going to dive into the pop culture of that era of, it's amazing to think that, the 20th century ended more than 25 years ago. Yes, I feel old saying that, but there's great stuff for tapping into memories, but also introducing people to this wealth of material and enjoyment.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking about wicker furniture sometime. I think that'll be great.
That was my parents' basement growing up, the wicker furniture. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, we had some, I've got the Royal Ohana room in my basement, the tiki bar. And we had a whole bunch of wicker furniture, and it was very uncomfortable, I've got to say. But it looked really neat.
Go figure.
Anyway, Ray, tell us a little bit about yourself. Why are you interested in this, and what is it about the way you grew up? And by the way, what do you do? And
oh my goodness,
Ray. Yeah,
a lot of questions there, Craig. Well, first, I want to, before we get into who you are and who I am, what's this neo-nostalgia word about?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I'm glad you went there. Yep.
Yeah. So I go back to Indiana Jones, as I often do, because I'm a big fan of Indy. And I wrote this down. I learned from Indiana Jones' father that you have to write things down so you don't forget. So whenever I play around with our title here, Neo-Nostalgia, I think of Indiana Jones in the classroom, and he's using a chalkboard, and he's saying Neo as in new, and lithic, and he has to pause to spell it, as in stone. So I think of myself as Indiana Jones telling you that Neo as in new, and nostalgia as in, an appreciation for the past. So that's where the title comes from. We're going to put them together. We're going to have your silly views and my silly views. We're going to have some great guests along the way, and just have some fun, but also not just nostalgia. That's why I was saying neo-nostalgia, but letting people know, hey, there's some great stuff here that you need to tap into. Listen, you and I weren't around in the 40s or 50s, but we appreciate so much of that era. And quite frankly, we were what, little tots in the 60s, but
Yep.
we love all that stuff and other people should love it.
I'll tell you, Ray, I've always felt like a man out of time. I don't know about you, but I often have said, and I'm glad that I wasn't born earlier, but I've often said I think I was born about 2 decades late. And just just the things that I love are all old. My
Yeah.
dream car is the 1963 Thunderbird convertible, please, in
Nice.
red.
Nice.
White leather seats would be preferable. I'll take the vinyl, but that's fine. But that bullet nose with the like the rocket taillights, those
Oh yeah.
round
Yeah.
kind of taillights and everything. It just I something about that car just I drool over that. And that's kind of where my tastes lie. I think about old movies like Dean Martin driving around in a convertible, and he'd have a car kind of like that. All sorts of old things like that. I love Get Smart growing up, the reruns, and all of that. Just really,
On
I
Adams.
think that was one of the greatest things ever. Was the reruns of our youth. You come home after school, and you'd have a little snack. Maybe you had your Jello pudding snack pack. Your little cup, pudding, and you turn on the TV, you had Get Smart, you had The Saint, you had Gilligan's Island,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
F Troop,
And we're gonna cover all this stuff.
Bonanza,
We are going to
all
cover
of
all this
those.
stuff. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all kind of my wheelhouse, and I love all that. And of course, musically, being an Italian, and I had to grow up with the Rat Pack. I mean, all the time, my dad had on the Rat Pack, and Dean Martin and Sinatra and all those guys. Sammy Davis Jr., I think, was one of the greatest all around entertainers in history.
Yeah. Oh, and
Uh,
you know what? My music tastes have always been behind me. I mean,
yeah,
even as a kid, when I started to get interested in rock and roll, it was always a little, what I got interested in wasn't necessarily current. I mean, I like some of that stuff, and we're going to talk about things like that, but I was always kind of backwards, you know? I mean, the Beach Boys came around in the early 60s when I was born, but the Beach
right.
Boys are number one on my hit parade, if you will. You talked about coming home from school and watching television. I often tell people that, yes, I was raised by my parents. They did a wonderful job, but I was also raised by television, quite frankly, and in particular reruns. And there were, when you think about these shows, I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan. There were Westerns, and you give the long list. And as I said, we're going to dive into so much of this stuff. But, when you have those weekly television shows, which I watched then every day of the week on reruns, there were little morality plays, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting to look back on them now. I mean, there are some that I'm discovering now that I never watched as a kid, and they were around in the 50s and 60s. So, that's where I come from on this is, always looking a bit backwards. TV, quite frankly, led to my love of classic movies, which is big for me, and in our household. I was a comic book fan. I still am, quite frankly. That led to my love of reading and my subsequent writing. My love of history. I love history. That pointed to, an appreciation for a whole host of things on the pop culture front. I'm fascinated by old radio shows and, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, their radio. Yeah, I love their movies, love Bing's music, but the radio shows were just wonderful. Although some of the jokes today are indecipherable because they are of the time. And as I said, my music tastes were always a bit backwards. And you know what? You're the guy actually that got me interested in mid-century modern stuff in terms of, decor and style. So there you go. I tip my hat
Nice.
to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, we live in a lovely mid-century modern home that was built in 1961, and it's just got really, really neat accents and that sort of thing. And of course,
Nice.
before we were here, we were in Cleveland, Ohio, and we had a nice mid-century house there too. So we've been just loving the fact that we've been able to find mid-century homes. Of course, that's the house I grew up in. Was my parents bought it 3 days before I was born, and I grew up in the same house. And so it was built in 1963.
Yeah.
And we moved in 1964, and it was just really that wonderful Brady existence, I guess you could say.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I recently was back on Long Island, not for a good reason, but I did a little, nostalgia tour for myself, and I went to the neighborhood where I grew up, and I think that house was built in like 57 or 58. My parents were the initial owners. My sister was a wee one at that time, but driving around my house was totally different. I didn't have any feelings of nostalgia because it changed so much. But
Hmm.
you go down the street a little bit, and I thought of you because there were so many homes that were redone or upgraded, but truly in that mid-century modern way. I mean, what they originally were, and they were beautifully done. So there's some great stuff to talk about on that front as well, and we'll definitely get to that. And I think we're emphasizing the point here that we love the entertainment, we love the enjoyment, and you know what we're
The
going to ask.
lifestyle,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we're going to, big question, right? And you and I have talked about this before. There are television shows from our childhood, maybe teen years, where we were like, oh, I watch that all the time. And you go back, and quite frankly, unfortunately, it's the exceptions that really hold up. And you're like, oh, this is still great. Because the rest of them you kind of watch, you're like, I mean, there are ones that hold up. You mentioned Get Smart holds up. I mean, a
Right.
whole host
Yep.
of shows that we'll get into and talk about. And movies as well, quite frankly. But there are some where you're just like, why did I like this? And why did people like this? So
I
we'll get
think,
into that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, we'll do a deep dive on that. But what's really interesting is the sitcoms of the 1970s. In general, not so much.
Yeah.
It just they didn't hold up. But
Yeah, no, listen, I think it's worth, I mean, there were some enormous hits in the 70s that we'll talk about, but just as a quick mention, I watched some episodes of Happy Days recently.
right? No, not
No,
so much.
no,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I watched it because Henry Winkler was back with the show that he was on recently, and he was just wonderful in it. And I was like, oh, let me see the Fonz. And I was like, oh. And it is what it is, but we'll dive into a lot of that stuff. And what I love is finding those gems that really and relaying it to people that haven't seen it, whether it's on a movie front again or television or music, finding those gems that are just still awesome, but people don't know about them.
We'll follow a lot of rabbit trails in the course of this program also, which is always fun. And you just brought up Henry Winkler, and that reminded me of a rabbit trail that I have discovered and loved. There is a travel program, and I cannot think of the name of it to save my life, but it's Henry Winkler, Bill Shatner, um,
Oh, it was a few years ago. Yeah, it wasn't that long
George
ago, but it was just
Foreman, and Terry Bradshaw. And
what a
they're
combo.
all old men and
They had-
traveling together. And just the way that I mean, these are all stars from our youth,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they're traveling together, and they just love each other, and they drive
Yeah.
each other nuts at the same time. But anyway, it's just a delightful thing. And it's a blast from the past, and yet it's these guys who have gotten old. Uh, but it just goes to prove that we're all still 12 years old at heart.
Oh,
And
yeah.
even those guys, they'll never grow up, and they
Yeah.
don't want to. So
I
God
mean,
bless
listen, look at what's on the shelf behind you and look at what's on the shelf behind me. And you could tell, at least I haven't fully grown up, to say the
them. No,
least.
I refuse to.
So, all right, you you mentioned who we are. I'm going to throw it to you then.
Yeah.
Okay. So why us? Why should people come and visit with Craig and Ray? What's your background? Who are you? Who are
Well,
you,
Ray,
Craig
to
Donofrio?
quote Barry Goldwater from the 1960s, if not you, then who? If not now, then when?
There
And he
you
was
go.
quoting someone else. I can't remember who he was quoting.
Fair enough. So who are you, Craig?
Well, I'm Craig Donofrio. I grew up
Mhm.
in Orange County, California, back when California was a wonderful place to live. You could actually afford to live there on a single income, even if your family was terribly middle class. My wife's father was a mailman, and he raised a family with 3 girls and a stay-at-home mom in Orange County, California. And of course, that is the kind of California that I grew up in, not the kind where you buy a dumpy little house for $1.2 million. So that's it's just a wonderful existence that I had as a child. Uh, Grew up about 15 minutes from the beach, about 10 minutes from Disneyland. Spoiled rotten and had no idea because the weather was always phenomenal. Even when we were facing a new ice age, in California, we get all the way down into a cold winter day was, 55 degrees. That was a
Yeah.
cold winter's day,
Yeah.
and just a tremendous life growing up, and no idea the freedoms that I had, being able to just go out on my bike and ride with friends until the street lights came on and come home. And, mom was always worried that I was run over by a car or something, but she was never worried that I was abducted by, some goons or anything like that. So, it's just a different world that you and I grew up in both, I think, and I long for those days. I really, really miss those days. And of course, back then, I didn't know about paying taxes or bills either. So I would really
What a
like to go back
wonderful
to that life
time. What a
too.
wonderful time. So what have you been doing since those wonderful childhood days? What did Craig
Mostly paying
Donofrio
taxes and bills. Yeah.
grow?
Yeah.
What did you grow up to be? You've done many things. I want you to share it with people.
Yes, I've had a very strange and
Yeah.
wonderful life, actually. If I were to die today, I'd say I died fulfilled. I dropped out of high school to be a rock star, and I played music professionally for about 5 or 6 years. Got completely ripped off by a record company, and my dad, who was a doctor, kept kind of harping on me. Without an education, you're going to be a bum. There's nothing for you out there. And so I went back to community college in California. You didn't need a high school diploma to go to community college.
Mm.
And I actually applied myself and did very well. And got involved with student government and all sorts of things and politically active. And I transferred on to a 4-year school, a Lutheran college. I didn't grow up Lutheran. And it's almost like there's a higher power out there who had a plan for me or something. And I ended up becoming a Lutheran, and now I'm a Lutheran pastor. But along the way before that, I worked in politics. I
Oh,
was a
we'll
campaign
forgive you.
manager.
We'll
Yeah,
forgive you. We'll forgive you.
well, I'm atoning for my sins. And now I'm a Lutheran pastor. I've been doing radio and podcasting since 1993, so I've been at this for a while, and
Yeah.
uh, it's a great thing. I mean, I have very few regrets in life, as we like to say around our house, no regrets. And it's just it's been a good life. It's been a good ride,
Good.
and
Good.
here I am at 61, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 or 5 years before I die. So.
Okay. On that happy note. Well, let me see if I can lift people up a little bit.
Always like, oh, when does that life insurance policy run out again?
Well, my childhood was very similar to yours, but just on the East Coast, on Long Island.
Right.
So, I did all those things that you said. Summer days, I would on the bike and out the door in the morning. And as long as I was back by the time the street lights went on, actually a little earlier, I got to eat dinner during the summer and then go back out and make sure I was in the
Ooh,
door
nice.
by the time those lights went on. So, I am like you. I'm a Lutheran today. I did not start out that way. I like to tell people that every school I went to had a saint in front of its name.
Mm.
So I went to Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school, and my undergraduate degree was at a Catholic college. So there you go. Graduate schools, though, no, I didn't. I went into the secular world, Hofstra University and NYU and New York University. And I became an economist. And I'm ashamed to say I've been working in Washington, D.C. since 1991. I've been doing the economics work. I've been writing I wrote newspaper columns, weekly newspaper columns for 3 papers, New York City Tribune, which was not around very long, Newsday, which was one of the largest, actually, circulation newspapers in the country. That was the Long Island paper. And then Long Island Business News. So I did that for over 20 years, which I enjoyed tremendously. Listen, and I joke around. I love my economics work. I've been doing it for 30 plus years now, and I work on all sorts of things that we will definitely not cover in this
No.
show. So, I'm I'm a novelist. So yes, an economist and a novelist. So I've written thrillers, mysteries, historical fiction, science fiction. My Pastor Stephen Grant novels are thrillers and mysteries, and I've written historical fiction set in the early 1930s, Alliance of St. Michael novels, and now I've dabbled into sci-fi,
Yes.
which fits with what we're doing because my latest book, Menace, an Agent Dean Cold novel, is set in the early 1950s, and it very much taps into some of the sci-fi themes of the 1950s. And I even wrote a little book going along with that, which was 1950s sci-fi, where I look at some 12 classic movies of that period. So as you can tell, I love science fiction. I mentioned earlier, I was a big Star Trek fan. I also have, I dabble in the Disney world. I have a Substack, Disney Biz Journal, .substack.com. So I write about Disney related things, mainly business stuff. And in recent years, I've dabbled a bit in podcasting, but nothing to the extent that you have. But that's been my very rich and fulfilling career over the years, and it's been fun. Listen, as one of my sons says, if you're not roofing in July, you're doing okay. So, but as I said,
I get the feeling that there's some. If you're watching this on the video, there's some self promotion going on behind you there. I don't know what that's.
That no.
Yeah,
oh yeah, it's just informational, Craig. That's what advertising is. It's informational.
Shameless self-promotion, which I endorse fully.
And we will at times be shameless about this podcast, no doubt. So speaking of that, what lies ahead, Craig? Where are we going? What are some of the things that
we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're going to have a blast. Reliving the past, even the past that we never lived. We're going to relive it, and it's going to be great. Once again, talking about all those things of our youth. All those pop culture moments, the commercials from television that we remember. We could still sing the jingles too. If we heard it, we could sing along, kind of thing.
Yeah, my family loves when I do that.
Oh yeah. You got that Oscar Mayer Wiener song going in your head right now, don't you?
That's right. I can do that. Yep. Yeah. And it's, I mean, when you look at that stuff, we're going to look at music. We've got a few episodes. Many episodes. We're going to do our top songs of each year. We're going to talk about television shows, the influence they've had, all sorts of things along. And we'll dabble, as I said, into novels and fiction, and I will drag you into comic book stuff as well.
Yes.
So, and it's all stuff.
Comic book guy, much more than I am.
Yeah. So it's all, Captain America. It's all stuff that people that have experienced it, love it. But as I said, I really want to introduce this stuff to people that don't know about it, because it's just wonderful stuff. And, there are going to be things that we could laugh at, as we mentioned before, things that don't hold up and are very much of their time. But there's just so much stuff that's excellent. And it's a wealth, a treasure trove that people need to tap into. And we're going to drag them kicking and screaming to good stuff.
Oh yeah. I think we're going to have a good time. You leading the way into the sci-fi and the comic book world. And of course I'll lead into tiki culture and
music.
Maybe we'll have some recipe suggestions for cocktails along the way or something like that too.
And some of that strange food that people ate after World War II. I've said this to you before. It's like, okay, we just fought a war. It was horrible. And it was, we won. That's great. So now we're just going to eat really weird stuff. We're going to look at that.
Well, we can ask you to also, what were they thinking of with that food pyramid? Right after World War II, it was like calories became more important because they've been rationing. And I guess calories were the most important thing, not what those calories are consisting of. But yeah. And boy, Jell-O was certainly a big thing. And I don't know, aspic and all that.
Craig, come on, you're a Lutheran pastor, and you know that in church basements, Jell-O is still a big thing. So there you go.
Oh yeah. This is also in some of those old recipe books, and it pops up at our potlucks on a regular basis, but it's billed as a salad, and it's whipped cream with bits of cookie and candy. And That's about it. And but that's a salad. So
that's
sign me up.
Yeah.
That's I like that health food. That's good stuff.
Yeah, well, we're going to find the origins of things like that and just say, and we'll scratch our heads and hopefully laugh. So there you go. So
right. Well, all right. I think that gives people a good idea of what we are going to be doing, and come back next time. We'll actually get into some really fun stuff, and we hope that you'll join us for this journey that we're on. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, spread the whole thing around. It's going to get good, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And thanks also to Alan Marsh, who's doing our voiceovers for us.
Yes.
Looking forward to doing lots of work with Alan. He's been a great resource in the past for me, and he'll be the voice of the NeoNostalgia podcast from here forward. I think.
Love it.
So
love it.
Anyway, until next time, we'll see you. Stay groovy.
Stay groovy. I like that. Is that our official sign off? We'll see.
I don't know. It is now.
Take it easy. Bye.
NeoNostalgia was not recorded in front of a live studio audience.